Hello, my name is Giles from photography and photoshopcourses.com, and today we're going to have a look at HDR inside Photoshop. So I have this oak tree that I've shot in 4-stop increments either side of the correct exposure. So if we look down here we can see +4, +3, +2, +1, and then -1, -2, -3, -4, and then 0. So typically this was obviously shot in very contrasty lighting and with the sun, and then you've got the dark branches of the oak tree and so forth. So what we're going to try and do is bring these together to see if we can create a more dramatic image, but also bring all of those different exposure values together to bring out the tonal range better. So we're going to select the first one, and then we're going to shift click and select the final one, and then we're going to go to Tools, Photoshop, and then we're going to go to Merge HDR Pro. So now it's opening them all up. These are raw files, but I've actually resaved them at 72 dpi just to speed things up a little bit. So a few things to consider when shooting HDR. Manual settings are very important if your camera allows it, so I would switch over to manual focus, manual aperture and shutter speed, and then fix those, and then vary the shutter speed in either half stop or stop increments depending on how many you want to do. And then a tripod obviously is very important as well, and also if your subject matter is stationary, so you don't really want to photograph when the wind's blowing. There's a little bit of movement in these leaves, which I'll show you later, but ideally no wind. Easier said than done, but especially if there's clouds racing across the sky, but that will create problems with alignment. So we're now in a new dialog box, which is the Merge to HDR Pro dialog box in Photoshop, and we've got the exposures along the bottom. You got the +4, etc., down to -4, and you've got loads of options on the right here. Personally, I tend to work with the photorealistic option, although there's all sorts of things to try out. Some aren't particularly good at all, so I prefer just to stick with the photorealistic one. Remove ghosts. This helps a little bit. We'll tick that box if there is a bit of movement. Sometimes that's quite good for taking that out. Edge smoothness, we'll just tick that as well and just keep it fairly low, about there, it's fine. Sometimes this will fix any problems with that, certainly with glowing edges and things where it's really contrasty light. Further down we've got these are sort of blending options. We're actually chosen the preset, so we'll stick with that. And again here more options here which we could change manually if we so desire. So we're going to stick with the 16-bit local adaptation. There's other ones here which you can try, and again more or less we might try the highlight compression. Actually that's quite good for smoothing down the highlights in terms of just knocking them back, so it's more of an even image to work with. So this looks quite flat at the moment, so what we're going to do is OK that. It's then going to process it into one image, then we're actually merging it back down to a 16-bit image file as opposed to what was a 32-bit image file. And working with that we can now do some more drastic curve corrections over the top. So we're going to go to a new adjustment layer and choose curves, and then we're going to pull up the midtones like so, and then we can just pull in the shadows just so they clip the start of that histogram. We'll leave the highlights where they are for the moment, and we can do other things, perhaps like new adjustment layer, and perhaps try black and white. A couple of things we can play around with this. One is to switch the black and white mode to soft light, and now this will just affect contrast. but it's an interesting way of working to bring out certain features. You can see how it's sort of bringing out certain areas of the foliage and things like that. And then if we wanted to take this further, if we wanted to just go straight to black and white, we could do another adjustment layer over the top. And again, just sort of play around with these sliders a little bit, and you can see how it interacts quite nicely. So you can get some quite surreal, almost infrared looking effects if you like so. So if we're going to go quite contrasty and bright here. Obviously this is quite blown out, but we could knock that back if we wanted to. So based on that sort of infrared look and feel, we can perhaps do one more adjustment layer. Let's pull down some more of the shadow area down here, and this time we're going to invert the master black, going Control Command I, and then we're going to choose the gradient tool, which is behind the paint bucket tool, and we're just going to click and drag. It's the other way, click and drag that way. There we go, and you can see how we've knocked back. We can probably knock that back a bit more if we wanted to, just to add a bit more drama here. You can see how we've pulled that shadow back down, which was otherwise quite flat. Probably go a bit more darker, something like that. Other things you might want to try is hue saturation, bring up the dialog box and colorize, and then you could tint it and then take the opacity down, give it a rather nice looking tinted effect, a little sepia look. And then obviously, because these are all adjustment layers, we've got plenty of scope for going in and changing things if we want afterwards. Pull back the highlights, etc. And if you want colour, we can switch off black and white and then go back to colour, and so on. So certainly food for thought, and I hope you enjoy this tutorial, and don't forget to check out the other tutorials on photography and Photoshop courses.com, and I'll see you again soon.